beautiful girl stands before a cold-hearted CEO. Under his gaze, she slowly removes her clothes. She is Natasha. Just a day ago, she chased after the tycoon Michael's car in the rainy night, all to have a conversation with him. Witnessing Natasha's determined efforts, Michael couldn't bear it. He gets out of the car, approaches Natasha, and agrees to meet her. Little did he know, from that moment on, Michael starts to develop feelings for Natasha, and the gears of destiny begin to turn. Natasha admits that it's because of her young brother John's gambling debts, which have affected her work, that she is so determined to secure an interview with Michael. Michael approaches Natasha, scrutinizing her, which makes her a bit nervous. He runs his hand up her arm to her shoulder, gazes at Natasha in front of him, trying to understand her better, and grasps her face, but ultimately convinces her to put her clothes back on. Meanwhile, Assistant Alice thoroughly investigates Natasha and finds her story to be truthful. Seeing Natasha in a difficult situation, Michael feels compassion and decides to help her. Although he never grants interviews, he agrees to help Natasha connect with other interviewees. Natasha wishes for interviewees of similar status to Michael. While this request surprises Michael, he recognizes Natasha's ambition and dedication to her work and ultimately agrees to assist her in resolving the urgent matter. Natasha is very grateful to Michael. Before leaving, Michael proposes that Natasha stay as his mistress, but Natasha still hesitates. Michael is somewhat disappointed, but agrees to give her some time to think it over. However, for the sake of her dignity, Natasha quickly leaves. John arrives at Natasha's company building, finds Natasha, and wants her to help him repay his debts. He grabs Natasha's neck, threatening her to comply. However, Natasha is not afraid. She chooses to ignore him and walks away. Devious John deceives the debt collectors, leading them to demand money from Natasha. That day, as Natasha finishes work, she encounters two thugs who have come to collect debts. They corner Natasha, blocking her way out, and demand that she repay John's debts. Natasha seizes the opportunity to escape, runs to the street, and flags down a passing car. Fortunately, the person in the car turns out to be Michael. In order to escape, Natasha asks Michael to help her leave. Seeing Natasha's situation, Michael is moved with compassion and eventually agrees. Inside the car, Natasha once again expresses her gratitude to Michael for his help. Michael takes the opportunity to mention his proposal for Natasha to become his mistress again. Natasha, looking at Michael, who has helped her multiple times, falls into contemplation. 10 years ago, Natasha got into a top university, but she struggled as her mother wanted her to drop out and get married. Feeling hopeless, she encountered Michael in the hallway, who was there to sponsor students. The principal took the opportunity to introduce Natasha's excellent grades to Michael. Just as Michael was about to leave, she had a bright idea and asked him to sponsor her university education. Michael readily agreed and assigned his assistant Alice to take charge. Thinking of Michael's every help, Natasha moves closer to him and kisses his cheek. Eventually, she also agrees to be his mistress. Seeing the enchanting Natasha, Michael's desire ignites within him. They arrive at Michael's home, unable to contain their desire for each other, and embrace in a kiss. Michael encircles Natasha in his arms, takes off his jacket, and lets desire take over, leaving reason behind as they passionately kiss each other, feeling each other's warmth. In the company, Natasha's rival, Marty, disparages Natasha by mocking her with the scandal of her brother's debts. Not only that, Marty also taunts her with a rumor of her pleading to Michael on a rainy night. Natasha gets into an argument with Marty. At this moment, their leader, Yolanda, steps out. Yolanda scolds both of them, emphasizing the need for teamwork as team members. However, Marty remains focused on wanting Natasha to resign. To keep her job, Natasha promises that she will interview the CEO, Leo, and makes a bet with Marty. Marty, full of confidence, agrees nonetheless. However, as Leo delays his appearance, Marty takes the opportunity to mock Natasha for lying. This leads to another argument between them. Suddenly, Sabrina rushes in to announce Leo's arrival, leaving Marty shocked. As Natasha predicted, Leo is there to be interviewed by her. Natasha's excellent performance earns recognition from Leo and her colleagues, leaving Marty feeling ashamed. Natasha, who wins the bet, proudly boasts to Marty, leaving Marty speechless, then leaves. Suddenly, Natasha receives a call from Alice and hurries to Michael's office. It turns out that Michael is feeling a bit down because of some work-related issues. Seeing Natasha's arrival, Michael is somewhat surprised. Natasha comforts him, and Michael takes the opportunity to hug her and kiss her. The two passionately embrace each other in Michael's office. After the kiss, Michael pulls Natasha onto his lap, which makes Natasha a bit shy. Michael suggests that she move in with him, making it easier for Natasha to go to work. Although Natasha is a bit hesitant, she eventually agrees to that. Natasha requests to resume hosting the financial news from her supervisor, Yolanda, but Yolanda, constrained by the power of Marty's boyfriend, has already assigned Marty to lead the project. After much thought, she decides to seek help from Michael. However, when she dials the number, a young girl unexpectedly answers the phone. Feeling a bit upset after hearing this, Natasha immediately hangs up. Back at home, Natasha continues to ponder the identity of the person on the call. Learning that Michael won't return home further saddens her. On the other side, Michael is deeply angered upon discovering that Natasha's call was answered by someone else. He scolds his cousin before hastily leaving. Upon returning home and finding Natasha sitting desolately on the couch, he softly calls out to her, explaining that the person who answered the phone was only his cousin. Comfortingly, he kisses Natasha's forehead, which brings Natasha great joy. Natasha still wants to talk to Yolanda herself to fight for hosting the financial news, but Yolanda only gives her a location. When she arrives, she finds that it's Porter's room. Coincidentally, Michael witnesses this. Natasha doesn't want to get involved with Porter and leaves hastily. Natasha really wants the chance to host, but she also doesn't want to betray Michael. At that moment, Michael opens the bathroom door, walks up to Natasha and grabs her by the neck. He is furious about Natasha meeting Porter and questions her loyalty. However, he still holds a hint of trust in Natasha, but anger overpowers reason. He forcefully kisses Natasha, asserting his dominance. The two kiss each other in the bathroom, forgetting everything around them. On that day, Natasha receives flowers sent by Porter, which is discovered by Marty. Marty sarcastically calls Natasha a flirtatious person. This angers Natasha, and she slaps Marty in anger. Marty attempts to retaliate, but Natasha blocks her, causing Marty to cower in fear. At that moment, Yolanda walks over, and Marty immediately plays the victim, accusing Natasha of hitting her. Yolanda is disappointed in Natasha, scolds her briefly, and then leaves. However, Natasha is not afraid of Marty's connections, and after mocking Marty, ridiculing her foolishness, she confidently walks away. Marty is extremely angry and decides to kidnap Natasha. Alice immediately informs Michael about Marty kidnapping Natasha. Michael becomes furious and orders Alice to gather bodyguards. Marty is smug about successfully kidnapping Natasha, unaware that retaliation is imminent. Natasha shows no fear about being kidnapped by Marty, and she mocks Marty's shamelessness, which angers Marty and leads her to slap Natasha. Natasha declares that she is Michael's friend, causing some fear. At that moment, Michael arrives at the scene with the bodyguards, surprising everyone present. He kicks the kidnappers aside and instructs the bodyguards to restrain them. Michael looks at the kidnapped Natasha with great concern. Alice also uncovers the truth about Natasha and Porter. Michael feels deeply remorseful for misunderstanding Natasha, apologizes to her in shame, and takes her back home. Marty receives her deserved lesson, and Natasha regains the opportunity to host financial news. Yolanda is surprised about Natasha's relationship with Michael. However, she doesn't want her excellent work to be overshadowed by her connection with Michael. so she asks Yolanda to help keep it confidential. Michael watches proudly as Natasha returns to work and excels. He then receives a weekend invitation from a friend and decides to introduce Natasha to them on a yacht. On that day, Michael brings Natasha to the yacht for the gathering. Natasha is very happy about this. Michael proudly introduces Natasha to his friends, and the two happily gaze at each other. Natasha is alone on the deck, drinking, when Michael's friend, Ellie, approaches. She admires the outstanding Natasha, so she advises Natasha not to get too lost in love and lose the shine in her work. Natasha ponders her words, drinks more, and falls asleep. Little does she know, Michael is confessing his feelings to her. Michael wants Natasha to be his girlfriend. However, Natasha unconsciously nods in her sleep, leading Michael to misunderstand and happily kiss her. When Natasha comes to, she thinks the kiss was just a dream. While Natasha is still pondering what just happened, Michael comes over and leads her away. He takes Natasha to the railing, where they gaze at the beautiful scenery, and their feelings gradually warm up without them realizing. Natasha is unaware of Michael's confession and finds his sudden warmth somewhat strange. On this day, Michael takes Natasha to the horse racing track to watch the races. Before leaving, they unexpectedly run into Michael's uncle, Morris. Natasha introduces herself, but Morris looks down on her. Not only that, Morris uses words to mock Natasha, considering her just a plaything maintained by Michael. However, Natasha doesn't take his taunts to heart. Watching the strong-willed Natasha, Michael can't help but feel somewhat surprised and admiring. Natasha is preparing to launch a special news feature. Yolanda is a bit worried, but she is very confident. However, the initial response to the news is not good. When Michael learns about this, he comforts Natasha at home. Surprisingly, Natasha is not discouraged by this. This greatly surprises Michael, who affectionately kisses Natasha on the forehead. Furthermore, Natasha also secures an invitation to the financial evening event based on her own merit. The financial evening event arrives as scheduled, and the two meet there. The love between them reaches its peak with every glance exchanged. However, Michael's grandfather, Stephen, looks very displeased watching Michael deeply in love. He disapproves of Natasha's family background, signals to those around him, and manages to have Natasha invited to the meeting room while Michael is distracted. Natasha accepts the invitation. Stephen doesn't oppose their relationship, but he doesn't want Natasha to marry into their family. Understanding the gap between her and Michael, Natasha, upon Stephen's warning, decides to expedite the process of leaving Michael. On the other side, when Michael learns that Stephen has taken Natasha away, he finds Stephen and confesses how important Natasha is to him. However, Stephen wants Michael to marry the wealthy young lady, Sydney. Michael is unwilling. After expressing his reluctance to comply, he leaves. Meanwhile, Natasha is getting ready to leave at any moment. Seeing this, Michael feels sad. Natasha intends to help Michael take off his suit jacket, but he stops, promising to take care of things at home. This makes Natasha's desire to leave somewhat waver. Natasha's overseas assignment is coming to an end, and she is hesitant about whether to return to the headquarters. Unexpectedly, Sydney approaches her. Sydney informs Natasha that she is soon to marry Michael, which surprises her greatly. The two go to a nearby cafe to talk. During their conversation, Sydney uses Natasha and Michael's family backgrounds to hurt Natasha's feelings, hoping that Natasha will leave Michael as soon as possible. Despite feeling a bit sad, Natasha eventually makes a decision and exits the cafe. For work-related socializing, Michael returns home, quite drunk. Natasha intends to prepare a hangover remedy for Michael, but he pulls her into his arms. She takes this opportunity to mention her decision to return to headquarters soon. But Michael still hopes that Natasha can trust him and give him some time to sort things out. Natasha had more to say, but seeing Michael inebriated, she decides to let him rest first. The next day, as Michael prepares for a meal, he receives a call from Alice. Through Alice's investigation, he learns that in reality, Sydney is facing troubles at home. He also thinks of a win-win solution that can address the arranged marriage situation. When Natasha leaves, she encounters Michael's driver. She declines the driver's offer for a ride, which leaves the driver feeling somewhat puzzled. Around the same time, a message about Natasha leaving also pops up on Michael's phone. Michael can't believe it and immediately turns to Alice for answers. Alice discovers that Natasha has already signed a contract with headquarters and is about to return to work there. He anxiously tries to call Natasha, but doesn't get through. Despite facing the looming departure, Natasha, too, feels a sense of reluctance. Natasha returns to headquarters and finds that the project she is in charge of needs investors due to a lack of funding. On this day, she comes across the news of Michael and Sydney's engagement, which makes her very sad. Coincidentally, she meets Hansen, who is preparing to meet a new investor, and he invites her to accompany him. However, this investor is lecherous and, captivated by Natasha's beauty, he attempts to touch her hand, making Natasha very angry as she refuses to be taken advantage of. Despite the project facing obstacles, Natasha leaves in indignation. Hansen, witnessing yet another failed negotiation, shakes his head in disappointment. On this day, Natasha is working at the company when she is suddenly informed that Sydney has come to see her. It turns out that even though Natasha has left Michael, he still refuses to marry Sydney. This leaves Sydney feeling somewhat annoyed, so she has come to see Natasha to perhaps find some amusement in her situation. Michael learns that Stephen has been sabotaging Natasha's work, causing her project to struggle to attract investment. He instructs Alice to handle the matter. In the darkness of night, unable to contain his thoughts about Natasha, Michael dials her number. Although Natasha recognizes Michael's voice on the other end of the line, due to the difference in their status, she ultimately hangs up, feeling sad and entering into contemplation. Hansen brings good news. Natasha's project has finally attracted investors, indicating that her news project can move forward. Natasha is happy upon discovering that her investor is actually Michael. She cannot comprehend why Michael is about to marry Sydney but still wants to help her. Unexpectedly, when she turns around, Michael appears by her side. His sudden presence surprises her greatly. However, rationality overcomes emotions. She understands the gap between her and Michael, so even though he is there with her, she still wants to make an effort to distance herself from him. Michael tries to persuade her, but she still leaves. Natasha's colleagues want her to interview Michael. Unexpectedly, Michael appears behind her, leaving Natasha extremely surprised. During the interview, Natasha professionally questions Michael about his career. However, Michael is solely focused on winning Natasha back, wanting her to be his girlfriend again. Consequently, his answers are very ambiguous, causing Natasha's heart to gradually lean towards him. After the interview concludes, Natasha politely shakes hands with Michael, but Michael hesitates to let go after holding her hand. As Natasha prepares to leave the company, Perry, who has feelings for her, offers to take her home, leaving Natasha feeling somewhat bewildered. This scene is witnessed by Michael, who is not far away. He calls Natasha, filled with jealousy, and insists that she decline Perry's offer so that he can be the one to take her home. Eventually, Natasha agrees. Once they reach Natasha's building, Michael still seeks Natasha's approval, but Natasha, feeling insecure, rejects Michael's advances and coldly walks away, leaving Michael alone. Michael is not discouraged at all. He has even prepared a special surprise for Natasha. He invites Natasha to the seaside where he has spared no expense in arranging artificial snow. In the romantic snowscape, he bears his true feelings. This surprises and moves Natasha deeply. He embraces her and kisses her. However, Natasha is still very hesitant. At that moment, Michael takes out a ring from his pocket, a beautiful ring. Seeing this ring and Michael's proposal, Natasha feels even more confused. In her view, she has always been just a mistress to Michael, which is why she decisively left him. Michael mentions the confession on the yacht. It is now revealed that the confession was a mistake. Despite this, Michael does not retreat. He decides to pursue Natasha. Natasha finally sees his sincerity, but she still needs some time to consider. In the car, Natasha is hesitant, but her good friend Lisa's words give her encouragement. Finally, she invites Michael to her home. It has been a long time since the two spent quality time alone, which makes Natasha feel a bit awkward. Michael takes Natasha's hand and guides her to touch his abs. Watching the shy Natasha, Michael's desire is ignited and he kisses her. The two passionately embrace each other. Natasha's desire is also ignited as she straddles Michael's lap, spending a wonderful night together. The next day, Michael asks Natasha if she is willing to be his girlfriend. Although Natasha inwardly approves of him, she still wants to continue testing him. On that day, Natasha encounters an ardent fan outside the company building. He fantasizes about Natasha being his girlfriend, pesters her and asks her to marry him. Just as Natasha is at a loss, Michael arrives in time. He tightly embraces the frightened Natasha and comforts her. The two take a walk in the park, and Natasha is very surprised by Michael's sudden appearance. In fact, Michael deliberately squeezed out more time to be with Natasha. Moved by Michael's efforts, Natasha kisses him spontaneously. Michael is ecstatic and kisses her back. However, Michael can't believe that Natasha has agreed to be with him. So Natasha hugs Michael, and the two ultimately become a couple. This scene happens to be witnessed by Morris, who captures it on camera and sends the photos to Stephen. Stephen angrily demands Michael to come. Before leaving, Michael bids farewell to Natasha. Stephen is very angry with Michael's behavior, scolding him for being completely absorbed in love and neglecting the family. At this moment, Michael's Aunt Helen steps in to mediate. Helen recalls how she and her own partner were forcefully separated by Stephen in the past, so she understands Michael's feelings. However, Stephen is very stubborn, and she is also concerned that Michael will face various obstacles from Stephen. But Michael is fearless. On this day, Natasha receives a work assignment to interview Carlson. Carlson is very satisfied with Natasha's work and looks forward to collaborating with her on more news interview projects in the future. Just as Natasha is preparing to leave, Carlson, using work as an excuse, asks Natasha to have dinner with him. Considering the job, Natasha agrees. Due to Michael's work commitments, he needs some more time before coming back. Although they can't meet in person, brief video calls already satisfy Natasha greatly. One day, Natasha unexpectedly sees Carlson's interview on the news. It turns out Carlson fell in love with her at first sight after watching her interview and wanted to pursue her. Opening the door, she finds Michael standing at her doorstep. Michael rushed back upon seeing Carlson's news and feeling jealous. However, in Natasha's heart, Michael will always be the most special person. She expresses her love to Michael and brings a bowl of porridge that she made herself. Touched, he gently strokes Natasha's hair and kisses her forehead. Natasha arrives at Hanson's office, only to find Carlson there. Carlson wishes for Natasha to be his girlfriend. Natasha's refusal angers Carlson greatly, and he is very unwilling to accept it. Not only that, he intercepts Natasha on her way home from work, holding a bouquet of flowers, hoping she will agree. Natasha's firm rejection leaves Carlson feeling defeated, leading him to slander Natasha. Just then, Michael arrives. He angrily punches Carlson. Feeling wealthy, Carlson is unafraid of Michael's threats. He even threatens that because Michael insists on being with Natasha, his assets will face restrictions from Stephen. After comforting Natasha for a few moments, Michael takes her away. Suddenly, Carlson receives a call from his father, learning that his authority has been transferred to his older brother. Michael takes Natasha to a newly purchased house of his, hoping that she will move in. He is still very angry about Carlson's actions, so he informs Alice to report Carlson's criminal behavior to the police. However, Michael is not done with company matters yet, so after bidding farewell to Natasha once again, he hurriedly departs. Originally, Michael agreed to help Sydney seize her inheritance rights and called off the engagement with Sydney. Sydney approaches Natasha to request her to host her jewelry banquet. Natasha also encounters Hansen, so after much thought, she agrees to take on this hosting job in order to see Michael. When Michael learns she is coming, he is very happy. Coincidentally, Morris is also present. After mocking Michael a few times, Morris turns and walks away. However, Michael chooses not to engage with him. At the jewelry banquet, Natasha encounters Morris. Knowing Morris has been scheming against Michael behind the scenes, Natasha's attitude towards Morris is unfriendly. She sarcastically remarks on Morris's uselessness, stating that he only acquires wealth through illegal means, which angers Morris. Meanwhile, a news report circulates among the attendees. Michael may lose his inheritance rights to the group. This news worries Natasha greatly. On the other side, Stephen and Michael are engaged in a heated argument. Michael expresses his loyalty to Natasha, provoking Stephen's anger. Stephen presents surveillance footage to Michael. It turns out that he has involved Natasha's parents, intending to manipulate them to separate Michael and Natasha. Watching the footage, Michael is deeply saddened by Natasha's plight, shedding tears uncontrollably. Seeing the heartbroken Michael, Stephen promises to help handle the situation if they break up. However, Michael, disdainful of this suggestion, calls Alice to assist Natasha. Stephen is infuriated by Michael's stubbornness, but Michael, determined to be with Natasha, refuses to yield, leading to Stephen angrily driving him away. Natasha returns to the house where she and Michael used to live. When Michael sees her, he embraces her. Michael is very upset for what Stephen did to Natasha. However, Natasha does not blame him. She gently comforts the distraught Michael. For them, deeply in love, nothing can stop them from being together now. They happily embrace each other. Natasha and Yolanda finish their work. Natasha decides to take down all the videos to help Michael, which worries Yolanda. Natasha is determined to assist Michael without fear. After work, Natasha asks Michael if they're going to the airport together. Michael mysteriously plans to take her somewhere and leads Natasha by the hand. They arrive at a construction site where Natasha recognizes it as the place where Michael is building a skyscraper. Michael reveals that the building is a gift for her. Initially stunned, Natasha is deeply moved and touched. Michael gently kisses her, and the gift symbolizes his sincerity. Natasha feels incredibly happy. Their colleague Gina believes that Natasha used unfair means to regain her position. When Natasha confronts Gina, exposing Gina's schemes against her, Gina becomes flustered but initially denies it until Natasha provides evidence. After teaching Gina a lesson and warning others, Natasha proceeds to attend a birthday party. At the birthday party, Natasha is chatting with friends, having a great time, and receiving many gifts. Suddenly, Michael approaches with a cake, asking Natasha to make a wish. With friends and a lover by her side, Natasha feels extremely excited. He gazes affectionately at the beautiful Natasha, slowly kneels down, holds a diamond ring, and proposes to her. Suddenly, a drone filming overhead loses control and falls. Michael protects Natasha, faints, and friends quickly call a doctor. The doctor says Michael needs rest. Natasha sees the doctor off, returns to worryingly watch over Michael, sits by his bedside, holds his hand, and unknowingly falls asleep. The next day, Michael wakes up to see Natasha by his side, comforts her, and assures her he is okay. Natasha, looking at the injured Michael, stands up to tuck him in, kisses his forehead, and then leaves. Michael's subordinate is investigating the attack incident. They suspect it's Morris's plot. Upon gathering information, he waits for Morris's next move. On the day of announcing the group's CEO, Natasha helps Michael put on his coat. At the meeting venue, Morris indeed attempts to grab Michael's arm, but Michael avoids it, exchanges a few impatient words, and walks away. Morris is furious at Michael's rudeness, but can't do much. During the meeting, Stephen is about to announce the selection for the group CEO position. Michael presents a video for everyone to watch. It turns out Michael has found evidence of Morris plotting to murder him. Seeing the conclusive evidence, Morris hypocritically apologizes to Michael and blames him for disrupting his business, leading to his retaliatory actions. Stephen is furious, and it's clear that Morris has lost his inheritance rights. Natasha reports on the situation of Michael's family group, which is exclusive information for their news agency. Her colleagues are curious about Natasha's information sources. Natasha confidently smiles. After work, as agreed, Natasha arrives at Michael's room door. Without waiting for Natasha to say anything, he shyly pulls her into the room. After a night passes, the two sit together chatting. Natasha asks Michael if he has time as she has won the Best Host award and wants to invite Michael to attend. Michael eagerly takes the invitation and is very happy. Lisa accompanies Natasha as she enters the awards ceremony hall. At that moment, many people at the ceremony see the rumors about Natasha, accusing her of ruining someone's marriage. Natasha is not afraid and boldly steps forward to publicly announce her romantic relationship with Michael, who is the heir to the group. Just then, Natasha turns and walks towards Michael, who has just entered the banquet hall, and smilingly asks him if he would be willing to be interviewed by her. Michael gladly agrees, and he is eager to confirm when Natasha will marry him. Michael's rumored fiancée steps forward, informing everyone that the rumor of their engagement was a misunderstanding by the elders and not true. With the confusion cleared up, they happily walk out of the venue. Today is the day for voting on the selection of the general manager. Due to feeling unwell, Stephen is represented by Helen for the vote. Morris had previously used threats to try to coerce Michael into voting for him, but Michael surprises everyone by voting for Helen instead. Ultimately, the board members vote by raising their hands, and Morris does not secure the position. Faced with Morris's disappointment, Michael exposes illegal activities involving Morris's son, Rollins. Helen admiringly pats on Michael's shoulder. Due to Morris's frame-up, Natasha is suddenly taken away by the police. Michael encounters Morris, waiting for him at home. Morris arrogantly states that Natasha will be imprisoned for as long as Rollins is. Michael pretends to be flustered and contacts his subordinates on his phone. Stephen steps out, sees the latest evidence against Morris provided by Michael, and angrily revokes all of Morris's positions. From pleading to cursing, Morris accuses Stephen of bias. In his emotional outburst, Morris harms Stephen. Thanks to prior preparation, Natasha proves her innocence, shows no signs of harm, and safely leaves. Natasha finds Michael after leaving the police station, and both express mutual concern for each other. Unable to tolerate Morris's repeated harm, Michael decides to expose his misdeeds to the police. Knowing that Stephen is injured, Natasha promises to accompany Michael to visit him the next day and will strive to persuade him to accept their relationship. Smiling, Michael suggests that Natasha should also make an effort now. As he speaks, Michael kisses Natasha, who understands and responds affectionately with a kiss. The two passionately kiss each other. Michael reports Morris to the police. When being arrested, Morris claims innocence and continuously curses Michael, but it's to no avail. Morris eventually faces the consequences of his actions and receives the appropriate punishment. Finally, the day to meet Stephen arrives. Surprisingly, Stephen approves of Michael's firm decision and recalls Michael's mother, seeing him as determined and courageous. He sets a wedding date for the two, and Michael and Natasha express their gratitude joyfully and leave happily. Watching the happy couple walk away, Stephen eventually realizes his past mistakes. Walking hand in hand on the beach, Michael and Natasha are delighted when snow unexpectedly falls from the sky, creating a romantic atmosphere. Michael once again presents a diamond ring, proposes to her, and reassures Natasha that he will never let go of her hand, no matter what happens. In the midst of the snowfall, the two happily kiss each other.